Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello everyone. Welcome back to English Literature 101 for English students at the Islamic University of Gaza. This is again an introductory course into the history of English literature. The course again aims at understanding the development of English literature in their and literary texts in their historical context. I said last time that we are going to take this course mainly as a literature course, but again to study the historical background of the literary movements, literary texts, and literary figures. We need also to study not only how history and historical events influence literature, but also how literature sometimes influences history and people in general. Last time we spoke about Old English. Old English, the time when England was being made. England was in the process of making itself the England we know now. Originally, there were people from all around Europe. We spoke about the natives, the Vikings. We spoke about the French, spoke about the Germans. All these tribes, in a way or another, thought it would be probably safer in the island rather than in the continent, in Europe itself. But later on, there were again more fightings and more wars inside the island itself. Now, Old English is mainly oral tradition. The poetry remained oral for a long time. People depended on their memory. Many of the poems were originally meant to be sung somewhere, so people memorized them. And in order to make a text memorable, easy to remember, and easy to memorize, there were certain features that we spoke about last time. We said they tried to be narrative in a way where the poem mainly tells a story, because stories, everybody loves stories. We like stories. We need to, if you need to memorize something, to immortalize something, to make it forever, to make it everywhere, every time, you put it in the form of a story. And then the themes. The themes were taken from real life, related to the people of that time. The themes touch the lives, the aspects of everybody's life there, and their circumstances and everything. That's why the themes were, remember, battles, about wars, about fighting, about struggle. And there were also personal themes, like themes of happiness, themes of sadness, and etc. We spoke also about the religious themes. And some of you noticed that the majority of texts from Old English are religious texts. And that could be telling, in the sense that we ask a question: were people purely religious at that time? Is it because people were, or is there another explanation?
Sometimes the poet or the author was religious, and sometimes the church chose a religious poem or a religious story.
Okay.
That's the reason it was religious.
Okay, can you say that again and speak up?
Because sometimes it was because the author was religious, and sometimes it was because the church was so religious that they chose a religious poem or a story.
Exactly. So who could read and write at that time? The monks, the people of the church. The people of the church were probably the only people who could read and write, which means only those people wrote the poems down. And perhaps there was an act of selection, which means there could have been some kind of censorship where the monk would choose the poem he likes, usually a poem with a religious theme other than probably secular theme or something else. And then finally, we said Old English in so many ways was a musical language, especially when they wrote poetry. There was the caesura, the alliteration, the music, the rhythm of poetry. Everything was meant to make the poem easy to remember and easy to memorize. Now, as we move from Old English to Middle English, we speak about a society that is developing, a society that is in the making. We speak about the English identity that is being made. Originally, people again came from different parts of Europe, but now they are in an area called England. And many people started to seek this English identity. The Englishness of English started to be developed at that time. People wanted to feel, some kind of harmony. They wanted to feel that they belong to this place. They wanted to see common interests and common issues among themselves. And when we speak about Middle English literature, we speak about the most famous literary figure of that time. The man who is considered the father of English literature, or English poetry in particular. His name is Chaucer. His name is Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer. Chaucer, by so many people, is considered the father of English literature. When we speak about early Middle English, this is the man who was working on some kind of literature to reflect the English identity that is being made, the society that is developing probably from all aspects. I will remember last time when we spoke about Old English, we spoke about the features of the period, the authors, the literature, and then we discussed the literature. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to give you samples from extracts from poems by Chaucer, and from these samples, from the poetry we have, we need to try to guess and to deduce the features of not only literature and poetry and language, but also of life. The most important literary work of that time, again by Chaucer, is the Canterbury Tales. Canterbury Tales is a long poem of 24 stories by Chaucer. Now, before I say much here, let's go directly to the text. And again, the aim is to see whether the text reflects the time, the age, or not, and in what sense. Look at this, number one. Remember what we call two lines of verse that rhyme? What we call them? A couplet. A couplet, thank you. Can you read, someone? Please.
But although he was quite sober,
Philosopher.
nevertheless he had only a little gold in his cup.
In his coffer. Thank you. Someone else? Please.
But although he was a philosopher, nevertheless he had only a little gold in his cup.
Thank you very much. Please.
But although he was a philosopher, nevertheless he had only a little gold in his cup.
Okay. One final reading, please.
But although he was a philosopher,
Nevertheless, but although he was a philosopher, nevertheless, he had only a little gold in his coffer. Again, this is the modern English writing. But if you look at your book, you will be able to read the Middle English text. You will at least be able to recognize some of the words. And the words that you can't read can easily be guessed from the context there. So if everyone goes to the book, okay? Page 13, 1-3. Go to page 13, everyone. This is Chaucer, page 12 and page 13. Look at the original English text. Okay, look at the text here. Page 13. Can you try to read the Middle English? This is not like typical Middle English, but this is close. Remember Old English? We couldn't read Old English because in so many ways it's a totally different language. But Middle English is the start of what we call the English language that we have now. It's not exactly what the language we have now, but this is the beginning. Okay? Can you read the English one text?
But oh, he that he was a philosopher, yet had but little gold
In his coffer. So, how many words are familiar to you? Probably most of them. Even the words that look weird, because again, there were no standards for spelling. And even grammar wasn't still fixed then, at that time. But the spelling, look at the spelling. This is the word had. And they would be throwing the E letter here and there. Okay? Now, the modern English makes it clearer for us. So, but although he was a philosopher, nevertheless, he had only a little gold in his coffer. What do you notice about this? What does the text communicate with you? Look at the couplet. Do you notice anything? This is poetry. This is Middle English. What is the theme? What is the form? Is there anything you can notice here that makes you, interesting what the poet is doing here? Yes?
The man is talking, told that he's a philosopher, but he didn't have a lot of money.
Okay, so it's talking about a philosopher, and the poetry is telling us, the text is telling us that he had a little gold in his coffer, in his, drawer, or probably safe, where people hide money and valuables. Very good. So what does it mean? Do you notice anything here? Yes?
That he wasn't seeking and searching for money, he was searching for knowledge and being a philosopher.
Very good. What is a philosopher? It's generally a person of knowledge, a person who seeks knowledge. In a way, this guy is a philosopher. How much gold does he have? How much money does he have? A little gold. Okay. What else? Please.
I think that person cares more about giving people information more than getting money.
Is this in the text or are you guessing?
I'm guessing.
Okay, you're guessing that a philosopher is supposed to be dedicated to people, to knowledge, to his society, the community, or her, of course, if we're talking about a female philosopher. What else do you notice? What else can you tell from the text? What difference can you notice? What is the major difference between this and Old English?
In the Old English, it includes a caesura.
Okay. There's no caesura here, right? The caesura started to disappear physically, but it also still existed. We'll talk about this later on. It is now no longer marked by the space. It could be marked by a comma or semicolon or full stop in the middle of the line of summary. Please. Okay, so now we have a new theme. People, remember, in the Old English literature, we spoke about people mainly dedicated themselves to fighting, to war. Poetry was mainly either about religion and God or about heroes and heroism. But here we have new, because, like I said, people started to settle down, to form cities and towns, to feel united. If you feel safe, if you start to build your own civilization, you start to look for other jobs. You no longer only produce heroes or monks. Now there are philosophers in the society. So these new themes started to appear in Middle English. And this is a natural step to the development. Yes?
He gives such a picture of his society. He mentioned also another things like love, also death. He gives.
That's true, but here, let's focus on the text now. See what the text communicates with us. Now let me ask you a question. Is little gold a lot of money or not? Like little gold. Like, let's say, I don't know, a handful of gold. If I give you this much gold, it's still a lot of money. And what does it mean here? So this is a philosopher who has a little gold. But still, little gold is still a lot of money. So the question is Chaucer here making fun Is he being ironic, being ironic?
Yes.
In a way, he's saying that this is a philosopher. He only has a little gold in his coffer. If he has a coffer where he puts gold, probably the author here is trying to make fun of the philosopher. The philosopher is not doing his job of being a philosopher to take care of knowledge, educate people, seek knowledge. He's more interested in collecting money than anything. So the society that was again fighting among itself now has different themes, different topics. But now people started to remember Beowulf. Beowulf, what did he do? He fought the enemy. He sacrificed himself, not only for his people, but for other peoples. But now we have the scientist, the knight, the nun, the philosopher is seeking his own personal interest. This is the theme of selfishness. The society started to have its own vices. When we are threatened, when we are, during war, people come closer to each other. We are united. But when people settle down, feel safe, what happens?
Searching for other interests.
Exactly, we become selfish and selfish. What do you notice also about the form? No, there's no caesura here. What else? Is there any source of music? Where's the rhyme? Oh, yeah. The rhyme is the last sound in a line of verse. The last sound or couple of sounds. That's the rhyme. Creates music. But although he was a philosopher, there was a little money, there's a little gold in his coffer. So philosopher and coffer, they rhyme. You know what rhyme is? The last sound or the last couple of sounds in a line of verse. So again, new themes, new forms. We have rhyme and we have no caesura here, but a new theme is starting to show up. Let's see another example and come back to the second one here. Okay. Again, if you look at the book, page 12, there's this tale, the nun's tale. The nun's tale. We move from talking about the philosopher to talking about, the nun is like the monk, the female monk. The nun is a woman who dedicates herself to the church, to God. She vows not to marry, not to have kids, just everything is dedicated to God, love of God. That's the nun. There's the monk, and then there is the nun. Okay? Look at the Middle English text. Can someone try to read, please? Can you read it? Look at the words. Can you find familiar words? Are there familiar words? They have the English letters that we have now. So they look strange, weird. So can you read this? Don't look below. Look at the original text. Can you read? Please. No, here.
That's of her was good smell and food.
Okay.
And she was all consist and drained for her.
Tender heart. Very good. Good reading. Whether you understand every single word or not, but still you can read this. The words look different because of the lack of spelling rules. Then someone else read the original text, please. Raise your voice.
Who in her way of smiling was very unaffected and modest, and all was sentiment and tender heart.
Sentiment and tender. This is not the original text. The original text. If you read the original text again, it's going to get easier and easier. So, this is smiling. Strange how they're spelling it, but you're going to recognize it. Go again for the original text.
Therefore, her smiling was both simple and quiet, and she was all conscious and tender heart.
Very good. Let's now go back to the modernized text. Who here is a reference to? The nun, in the nun's tale. Who in her way of smiling was very unaffected and modest, and all was sentiment and tender heart. Again, let's comment on the text. Take 1 minute. Look at the text. What do you notice? What is new? What is the poet saying? What is he communicating with us? What is the theme? What do you notice about the language, about the form, the music? Who are the characters? Okay. And the nun is? She's the main character. The nun is a woman or a man? A woman. A woman who is supposed to dedicate her life to the church, to God. Now remember the old English texts?
All men.
We discussed, thank you, all men. We discussed probably 10 texts, and almost all of them were about heroes, about someone who hears the voice of God, someone who loses his job, someone who fights dragons and monsters. But now for the first time, we have a woman in a text. And the woman is not only a character, is not only mentioned in passing, she's the main character. There's a tale in her name. Look at the title. The Nun's Tale. So we deduce that, we come to the conclusion that in Middle English, women started to appear, to take space and to take room. They became main characters in the text. What else is there in the couplet? Please.
It says that the nun, when they smile, their smile affects people, it's full of emotions, but still not crossing her lines as a nun.
Okay, so she smiles, she influences people, and you're talking about crossing the lines of being a nun. Where can you see that?
It says unaffected, then in the other line, all was sentiment.
Okay, in the first line, who in her way of smiling was unaffected and modest. Modest, like she's dedicated. Because this is what generally, listen, at that time, and even now in so many cultures, women, the most important thing about women is modesty, is their modesty. And modesty is usually defined by man. Okay? Which is something probably we'll talk about later on. But usually women live under the rules of man for ages and ages. In so many ways, this is not good. And that's why women start usually to struggle to take their rights, their equal rights. So the nun is doing a role dedicated to dedicate herself to God and religion. And the first line, yes, she is unaffected and modest. She's playing, she's doing her job. But in the second line, there is a word that we need to notice here. She was all sentiment. What's sentiment? Sentiment, emotions of love, emotions of feelings of love and tender heart. In other ways, again, similar to the story of the philosopher, this is a woman, a nun who is supposed to be dedicated her life to God, but instead, she cares more about her love and emotions than anything else. Again, this is Chaucer trying to criticize the society using what we call, again, irony. He says something, but he means something else. He says, this philosopher has a little gold. And then we realize, oh my God, still this is a lot of money. And see, this nun, she's all about sentiment and tender heart. Oh. So the nun is also, in the strictest sense of the word, is not a conventional nun. But what is new here is the fact that women started to appear, to take role, to be part of this. Although generally at the beginning they were just objects of admiration. They were just objects for men to admire. My question is here. Can you see this nun? Can you see her as someone rejecting the norms of the society, someone defying, resisting the roles imposed upon her? My question again. Here we have a nun who's supposed to be a nun, but she's breaking the rules of being a nun. is breaking the rules here. Part of the woman doing something, what is she doing? Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the nun was trying to look strict and
Okay.
to not laugh in front of someone or show her feelings. But in a woman's personality in general are kind-hearted and have
And sentiment.
yeah.
Again, generally, you're not supposed to fall in love with life, with things, with people, in like man-women relationships. But this woman is breaking the rules. Does it say something? When the philosopher broke the rules, we said he's a hypocrite, a fake philosopher, because he is interested in collecting money. And now, is this a fake nun, or is this woman doing something important? Yeah, about being all about sentiment and love.
I want to ask, were women forced to be nuns back then?
It's not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they were. I'm not sure someone would force her physically to be a nun, but sometimes society leads you to a particular conclusion. But it's not clear. But thank you very much for asking this question. Maybe, so we deduce, if this nun is not doing her job as a nun, maybe in the beginning she was forced, or she was put in a position where she had no choice. But my question again, what does it tell if this woman is not following the rules of being a nun, the rules of the church? Is she a hypocrite, or is she...
She's following her heart.
She's a woman following her heart.
That's a personality in women.
Personality, to challenge that given. Thank you very much. In a way or another, this is a person who's trying to have a voice for women. Probably the voice is not that loud and clear, but this is someone resisting the rules of the society, even resisting the rules of the church. And for her, being a nun is not what the church decides, it's what her tender heart decides. Please.
I think a nun would choose to be a nun to not go under under a man, to not be forced by a man. I think she would be a nun and hide her feelings and show that she's strict rather than being under a man.
In general, that is a possibility, but it's not here in the text. In the text, we have a woman who defies the rules of being a nun, breaks the rules in a way to change the image of women, to give women a place. We'll talk about this later on as we move, talking about English literature. Another example here, it's from The Knight's Tale. You know, the knight, Beowulf in a way was a knight, a warrior, a fighter, a strong man with a horse and a sword. What were they supposed to be doing, knights? What is the job of a knight? To protect, to fight, to defend. They're in a way they're soldiers, but they're not ordinary soldiers. They are strong, noble fighters. Again, heroes. What did Beowulf do? He died defending others. Sacrificed his life. This is originally what a knight was supposed to be. Is this knight a traditional knight from Old English, or is there something else? Can you please read? Someone read the original text first. Read the original text and speak up.
And therefore, and the king's sword, my brother, each man for himself, there is none other.
There's none other. Can you translate this? Do you understand what it is saying?
I think the author is talking
Can you understand the text, the language?
a little.
A little bit. What are the difficult words?
No other.
Other? We know other. There's an extra O there.
Yeah.
It's other. Read it again and you say, oh my God, these are the words I know. King is weirdly spelled, and himself. But when you read it again, you realize that this is the English of today, but with different spelling. So again, this is a Middle English. We can read Middle English. Okay, now someone please read the modernized text. Please.
And therefore at the king's court, my brother, each man for himself, there is no other.
Very good. One more, please.
And therefore, at the king's court, my brother, each man for himself, there is no other way.
There is no other. This is supposed to be king, okay? One more, final.
And therefore at the king's court, my brother, each man for himself, there is no other.
And each man for himself, there is no other. I dropped the word way from the book because it's just added. There's no need to add it here in the translation. I'd like to go for this version. And therefore at the king's court, my brother. What happens at the king's court when a knight is telling a story? Traditionally, people are competing to show that they are strong, to be heroes, to defend. But what happens at the king's court? Each man for himself. يعني نفسي نفسي, okay? Each man for himself, there is no other.
No other hero.
No other person I care about except myself. Selfishness. Again, we have a knight who is not a knight. Why? Because knights, Chaucer is trying again to communicate with us the idea that knights now don't belong in a modern society in a way. They belong to the past, to stories, to the epics of the past. In modern society, people are settling down more and more. There are no, like there were wars. When we speak about Middle English, we speak about there's the 100-year war between England and France that lasted for over 110 years. There were people dying every day. But in so many ways, people started to settle down and live relatively in peace. So a knight is no longer a knight. Like a nun is no longer a knight. A nun. And a philosopher is no longer a philosopher. This is a society. This is a poet that is exposing his society. He's talking about the vices, the problems, but presenting a realistic image about the society. Because yes, we want to defend others. Yes, we want to fight for others. Yes, we love others. But we usually don't forget ourselves. It's good to be selfless, but if you are totally selfless, that's not realistic. Because you need to gain something yourself. So the heroic image of the Old English, that the image that we see in Beowulf, is turning into a realistic image in Chaucer, where people are presented as people with weaknesses, with vices, not as pure, complete people. Notice also here we have the rhyme. Again, what is the rhyme? The last sound or couple of sounds in a line of verse. Do these lines rhyme? Let's hear. Brother, other. Modest and hard, probably imperfect rhyme. And a final example here is again from Chaucer, the second part. What is this world? What do men ask for? Now with his love, now in his cold grave, alone without any companionship. If I give you this text without telling you this is from over 1,000 years ago or less, you're not going to know. Because this question of what is this life, what is this world, what do men, what do people ask for, what do you want in life? These are questions that are modern, questions of today, of the 21st century. But again, this is something that Chaucer asked long time ago, that poets asked thousands of years ago and hundreds of years ago. And this is again the beauty of poetry. Poetry crosses time and crosses race and all obstacles to talk to us, to address us. Now, and again, this is one reason why Chaucer is the father of English literature. He was a fine poet, an excellent poet, who captured the heart, the mind of England, the English people in a society that was being modernized, being made. Notice again the There is in the original text there is also a rhyme, but we lose it in the translation. What is this world? What do men ask for? Meaning, no matter what you do. Remember the question about what it means to be a human being? What it means to be a human being in Beowulf? The same question is now still being asked. What does it mean to be a human being? Because no matter how powerful, how strong, no matter how much money, how much gold you collect, what is this world? What do men ask for? What? Love, money, happiness? At the end of the day, now with his love, now in his old cold grave. Really terrifying image when someone feels like not only in a grave, in a cold grave. See the now, the repetition of now. This, by the way, this creates a caesura. The question, the pause, the caesura. Now with his love, now with a sad tone here, alone without any companionship. Say again. Thank you very much. And this is Chaucer. Chaucer was not only about fighting battles and wars, he was bringing us a broad array of themes and issues. Now, can we talk about the features, the characteristics of English literature, of English poetry mainly, in Middle English? Can you tell? What do you notice? What new things do we have here? Listen, so now we have the text, and we try to understand the society, how the text reflects life. One, and raise your voice.
He added new themes.
Number one, new themes such as
Love, money,
money, hypocrisy, change. Please.
the role of the woman starts.
Oh, yes, important themes related to women. They started as minor, minimal. They started as objects of admiration. But later on, we, like every now and then, we find very strong women who challenge and defy, like your friend here suggested, to try to change the image people have about women. Please.
The language is softer.
The language is closer to the language of today. Where it's sometimes not recognizable because of the different spelling, but upon several readings, we can make sense. We can make sense of many of this. Yes. No, there's no caesura, the physical, a gap, but still it disappeared in a way or another. But sometimes we have it in punctuation marks. Yes.
The poet started using irony, harassing.
Yes.
people.
Remember, at the beginning it was all about heroism, all about praise, all about elegy, praising the dead, praising God, praising the heroes. But now we have irony, new techniques. Irony, using irony to say something and to mean, because people became more and more intelligent. Please. Okay, so the idealistic image we had of pure heroes, of complete perfect people, started to change into realistic pictures. The last point to conclude, Chaucer begins the Canterbury Tales, which again consists of 24 stories. He originally intended them to be 120, but he only wrote 24 stories. And he started the whole poem with the description of spring. Spring, new life, symbolizing regeneration, rebirth. In a way, he was saying that this is England. This is the spring of England. This is the beginning for England. We plant the seeds, and the spring begins in April. Now, when we say April in English literature, April has been made famous mainly because of Chaucer, and then later on in the 20th century by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot begins his most famous poem, The Wasteland, by mentioning April. Do you know what he says? T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland. 1 mark if you know the first verse of the first line in the Wasteland. T.S. Eliot is the greatest 20th century poet. He's American and British. His most famous poem is The Wasteland. الأرض الخراب اليابان. What is the first line? 1 mark. 1 mark if you know. He says, April is the cruelest month. April is the cruelest month. Remember, in so many ways, when he says April is the cruelest month, he's reminding us of Chaucer. He's connecting his poem from Chaucer, the father, the most important figure of early English poetry. Do you know why? Can you tell why? Why did T.S. Eliot begin his poem, The Wasteland, with April is the cruelest month, contradicting Chaucer, who praised April as the month of spring and life and generation? I'll let you think of this question. I'll stop here, and we meet next time, inshallah, and we'll be talking about other texts from Middle English. Do you have any question?